Welcome, welcome. I am Dr. Barry. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. This case, so I was waiting for the verdict before talking about this case, and I want to talk about Jennifer Crumbley, what this case might do for parental responsibility. And then also, I want to play a little bit of the school guidance counselor because I do think that some red flags were missed in this case. Not now I do I agree? Do I not agree? I'm still kind of formulating my thoughts on how I feel about the verdict. I think likability might have come into this again. I think Jennifer Crumbley, to me, she came across as kind of emotionally distant, emotionally I don't and she's trying to manage her emotions, talking about a difficult case. I definitely get all of that, but there were times to me that she came across as minimizing some of his behaviors, and even her statement of she said something to the effect of, like, if anything was different, I wish it had been us instead of him going to the school, which if I was a parent and this happened, I would have said something like, "I wish none of this had happened at all. I wish that we had had a trigger lock on the weapon." Like, I would have said something different. I wouldn't have said, "I wish that it had been us." I don't know. And you never know what you would do in a situation like this, but that kind of caught me a little off guard. But for anyone that does not know this case, so Ethan Crumbley, he is in the middle here. His image is in the middle. This incident happened at an Oxford high school, and it was a mass situation. It was a horrific situation. He pled guilty, and then they had a Miller hearing. And a Miller hearing is where they determine if the individual gets life in prison or not. I did see the Lawyer You Know's coverage on this. I've also watched a few other people talk about this particular case. And the Lawyer You Know played a clip where Ethan talks about that he alone is responsible for this and that he said something to the effect of that he nobody really knew exactly what he was going to do. I definitely understand why the jury decided what they decided, but let's take a step back, and I wanna start with the counselor, alright? So let's play a little bit of the counselor's testimony, and I just want to talk about how some counties and how some things could have been done different in this case to hopefully lead to a much different outcome, alright? Let's share this tab. Gonna put closed captioning on, full screen. Right.
So this is, it's, remember, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. September the 8th, 2021, 8:23 a.m. This is an email from a different teacher to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And could you read us, please, what the email says?
Hi, Sean. Could you please touch base with student? In his autobiography poem, he said he feels terrible and that his family is a mistake. Unusual responses for sure.
Okay. Did you respond to that email?
I believe I did.
Okay. So this is your response, September the 8th, 2021, 9:15 a.m. What is your response?
Thanks for the heads up. I'm in senior meetings throughout the day, but we'll try and catch up with him.
Now, do you recall that interaction with the defendant's son?
In this case, I did not have a direct interaction with the defendant's son. I talked with the teacher.
Okay. And tell us about that, please.
I had a conversation with the teacher, and she explained to me a little bit more context of what had gone on. She explained that he was joking.
I would object to the hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth of the matter, sir. The judge just offer what he did next and why.
Okay, so what did you do next?
So I had a conversation with the teacher who gave me greater context of what was going on within this. And she stated that he was actually.
Your Honor, I would object.
I don't think it was clear to him.
All right, so they're gonna go back and forth on this a little bit. I was the state's case, in my mind, had a few holes in it. And some of the holes were the fact that, to me, it didn't sound like the school was saying he definitely has to go home today. And it didn't sound like the school had even assessed him to the point of saying he's a risk he's definitely an imminent risk to himself or someone else. Now, the school was not aware that the family had purchased a weapon for him. The school was not aware of that. They were not aware of the potential, that he might have had something on him, and I think that might be what the jury really went with. Y'all let me know in the chat if there have been any juror interviews. I don't know that there have been. Jennifer Crumbley is definitely going to appeal this decision, but to me, there were some understandable holes in all of this. And so let's keep going.
I'm sorry,
Oh, that's all right.
I'm gonna fast forward a little bit.
the student
Okay.
at this time.
And did you send an email to either the defendant or her husband, or a phone call to either the defendant or her husband?
I did not.
Okay, that's all. Now, in Oxford High School, are grades posted so parents can follow along?
They are.
Okay, and what system is that?
That is through a system called Power School.
Okay,
They are given live updates through that system.
and that's every parent of every student registered in Oxford School District. They can follow along with assignments and things of that nature.
Yes,
And our parents also provided emailed updates to Power School.
I believe that they can get notifications.
Okay, so this is what I was really surprised didn't happen, because in our school system, if a student is doing something that is raising an alarm, we bring in a school social worker to do a risk assessment. So the guidance counselor isn't the one that does the risk assessment in my state. Now, typically schools for mental health, sometimes they can be there can be a lot of difficulty. Okay. And so I was really surprised that nobody talked about doing a risk assessment, because even in his testimony, he talks about possible unaliving thoughts, that they were thinking that he was potentially thinking about harming himself. They never mentioned any potential to harm someone else, because in the picture that Ethan drew, there was only one person. And so, like, those were some of the holes for me. I'm just being honest about it. Thank you, SL Conley, for talking about the fact that there is a gag order, and then thank you, Tart with the Heart. I guess one juror has spoken with Court TV. I always thought that there would have been some type of risk assessment done. We're going to play a little bit more of this, and then I'm going to play a little bit of Jennifer Crumbley's testimony.
Notifications through the Power School system.
And that sends an email?
I'm not sure how that is.
If you know, that's all right.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit.
Now, can you tell us what this does, please?
Student is having a rough time right now. He might need to speak with you.
And then your response at 4:44 p.m. on November the 10th, 2021 was what?
I'm sorry, I was in a meeting through the end of the day. I'll catch up with him.
Okay, and did you catch up with him?
I did the following day.
Okay, tell us about that, please.
I had a quick meeting in the hallway on his way to class.
And so a quick meeting, so I'm just being honest with y'all. A quick meeting in the hallway is more of a check-in, like that's not being pulled into the office one-on-one and assessing the needs of a student. Now, this counselor, he has 400 students. He has a bunch of different students, and that's why within our school system, if there are students that need additional help and support, because our guidance counselors are not licensed therapists. So our guidance counselors, they sometimes have a degree in school counseling, sometimes they have a counseling degree. They typically do not hold a license to practice therapy. They are typically more focused on just the everyday support and needs of a student. I adore our guidance counselors. Our guidance counselors do a great job. I have had good and bad experiences with guidance counselors personally, and then also just with clients because I have clients that have anxiety, and I had a guidance counselor tell a client to just like not be anxious. It's like if that was a thing, like that's not a thing. And so I've had people have good and bad experiences. Um so we're gonna keep going.
And just let him know that if he needed somebody to talk to, that I could be there for him.
Okay. Now, did you contact either that student's mother or father at that point?
I did not.
So this is a great question. For a risk assessment, would that be done with the parent's approval? And so in our county, if a student is searching for bullets, the school could likely do a risk assessment without, because that's assessing for imminent risk and safety. They could probably do an assessment without parent approval, because I think a part of the intake packet is giving approval for school counseling. So within Virginia, a part of enrollment is, I think, saying, hey, just a heads up, we offer counseling services. Our counselors might check in on your child. My child is in elementary school, and all the kids have school counseling built into their schedule. So every student has, like, they talk about emotions, they do social emotional learning. They have a curriculum that they do with all the students. And then if they identify a student that has additional needs, then they would make sure that the parent was aware that the child was receiving some additional supports at school, but there typically isn't another approval. And I'm just talking about Virginia. So I'm in Virginia. I know my state. I am not exactly sure what would happen in that state. But normally, if safety is an issue, you typically don't need parent approval. All right.
Okay, did you send it an email? And why not?
Because it was something that was very typical. I didn't have any information on the student other than he was sad, which to me is a pretty common thing and a normal thing. And I just wanted to be able to offer a bridge that if that student wanted to talk.
Okay. And you offered that bridge to the student?
I did meet with that student in the hallway and offered that opportunity.
Okay, for the record, that was General Crumbley's son, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, the next time you had any interaction with the defendant's son was November the 29th, 2021, would that be right?
Yes.
This is exhibit 158. Sir, this is an email to you that eventually was forwarded, is that correct?
This email was eventually forwarded to me fairly quickly after it was sent to the two on this email.
Okay, so this is Monday, November 29th, 9:32 a.m. Can you read us, please?
All right. Y'all, the chat, y'all are on it, because I agree. I do think Ethan did minimize things, and I think it did make it hard. I think he was hiding what he wanted to do and what he was planning. I think they used some of the messages, because I guess Ethan had sent messages to someone else saying, I asked my parents for help and they laughed at me." Some of that came up, and I think I have some of that cross examination of the mom, where to me she didn't give a great answer to that. Welcome, listener. I appreciate the super chat. I'm glad that I'm answering your questions. If y'all have questions, make sure to just put them in the chat. um no school is perfect. I'm sure the school has taken a look at how they handled this situation and what they could have done different, because I do think the parents could have done some things different. The student, of course, could have done some things different. And then I think so the parent, school, and then also the student. The person that I hold the most responsible is the student, is Ethan. And I did agree, he was sentenced to life in prison, and they had to have a whole special hearing to decide if that was if they could legally do that because of his age at the time of the crime, and he did end up getting that. We're going to play a little bit more of this and then switch over to Jennifer's testimony. Just some little clips of that.
Please, what the email says.
I have a student during first hour today, defendant's son, who is on his phone looking at different bullets at the end of first hour today as I was walking around the room passing out their essays. I didn't get a chance to investigate it a bit further since it was the end of the hour. Now that he's on my radar, I'm also noticing some of his previous work that he's completed from earlier in the year leans a bit toward the violent side. I can bring these things later today during my 5th hour prep if you would like them.
Okay, so this was 9:32 a.m. and you weren't on the initial email, but it was forwarded to you.
It was forwarded to me.
Okay, and tell us what happened next, please.
At this point, I received a phone call from Pam Fine, who was on the original email, asking if I would be able to come to her office. She was planning to call down the student and meet to discuss the contents of this email.
Now, in the realm of either a school counselor or someone who's in discipline of students, there are certain levels of escalation when it comes to contacting a student and or a parent. Would that be right?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. So there's a check-in.
Your Honor, I would ask that the witness answer the questions and avoid the leading questions.
Please.
All right, great. Okay, so earlier you testified that you had just met with the student's teacher in September of 2021.
Yes,
Okay, and you felt that was sufficient at that point.
yes, because I was able to gain more context.
Okay. November the 10th of 2000, well, actually, you met with him November the 11th, 2021. You took the next step to meet with him.
Yes,
Okay. And now a decision was made, you just testified that to actually bring the student into the office.
that decision was made. I was not the one who made that decision.
Sure. But as far as you're concerned in your role, what are the levels of escalation to contact either a parent or somebody else?
It depends on the situation. If it's a discipline issue, I'd be contacting a dean or a principal. And then they would be the ones leading the meeting from there. If it's a social emotional issue, or if I feel the student is at risk of harm to themselves, I would be contacting a parent.
And I think it's so interesting that we're not talking about risk of harm to others as well. And that might just be my clinical nature. So y'all know I am a clinical psychologist. And with now, we always talk about with mental health, there's typically a greater risk to self than to others, but there are people that have thoughts of harm to other people, and that is something that should be assessed. Okay. And this is a great question. No, he never had any major discipline issues. And that might have been why some things kind of went under the radar, and that's what the family, because even when the parents were arrested, because there's video of that. I did watch that footage. We're not going to cover that today, but I think it was mom that said he's a good kid, and this was after the incident happened. And yes, that was that. All right, so let's switch to Jennifer's testimony. She did take the stand, and let's switch to her testimony.
I'm gonna have to pull it out each time, so I apologize in between exhibits. So that I'm gonna pull it out. Okay. All right, Mrs. Crumbley. Can you please start by identifying yourself? Tell the jury who you are.
My name is Jennifer Crumbley, and I'm the defendant in this case.
And how old are you?
I'm 45.
Mrs. Crumbley, the jury has heard so much testimony. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna go a little bit faster through things. And if there's something we need to explain, or if I'm cutting you off, let me know. Okay. And you understand that as I speak, you have to wait for me to finish speaking?
Correct.
Okay. So Mrs. Crumbley, very briefly, go ahead and tell the jury what you did for a living.
I was a marketing director at a real estate acquisition company.
And how long did you hold that position?
5 years.
Now, does that kind of position include any kind of presentations or public speaking, anything like that?
Not a lot.
And how do you feel right now about talking to this jury?
Public speaking is probably my biggest fear. So very nervous.
Okay. And
Okay, so I do think that the lawyer specifically asked about her anxiety off, like, so she's nervous to talk in front of people. She came across a little, I don't know, like it's just it was hard, I think, how she comes across, because the way the prosecution is talking about her, they are trying to portray her as a neglectful parent that didn't spend enough time with her child, that was having an affair, and that was doing all of these other things. Um uh, so I think the defense wanted to clarify, like, I don't know if they were trying to make that witness seem as though he was biased, or that it was just an affair. Like, it seemed like the defense was trying to minimize that role. That's my opinion on how I saw it. I don't know what the defense's strategy was with the defense bringing up that it was an affair, and I don't know, like, I guess they were thinking with the makeup of the jury was 6 men and 6 women. I don't I don't know. I don't know why. And Jennifer Crumbley is still legally married to Ethan's father. I wanna say James Crumbley. She is still they're still legally married. To me, she throws James under the bus a little bit, like, she throws her husband under the bus, saying he's the one that purchased the weapon, he's the one, so they separated their cases, and they're trying them separately. The father's case is going to be next. All right, let's keep going.
um, at times, you have been upset during this trial, is that correct?
Correct.
Are you okay to keep proceeding?
Yes.
I want you to tell this jury just a little bit about your personality, and I think we've seen some of it on the videos. Is that fair to say?
You have.
Okay, let's talk about when you have a really stressful situation. What is your, like, let's say an animal dies in your family or a person dies in your family. How do you handle something like that, news like that?
I go into a go planning mode. I internalize things, and my reaction is to take care of other things that may have to be taken care of, like financials or things that keep the house running. I tend to hold things in, and I let it out when I'm alone. So having a lot of emotions for me is difficult.
Now, in this case,
I personally thought it was a really smart strategy to explain how she handles her emotions, that she internalizes it. And yet, I wonder if the jury thought that maybe if they had handled things differently, could things have turned out different? I don't know. This was also an unprecedented case. Like, this is the first time a parent has been charged with involuntary manslaughter after a situation like this. And there were a lot of comments. So I jumped right over to the lawyer you know's chat, because he was live while this was happening. I wasn't able to go live earlier. I was finishing up some paperwork, but I was able to kind of monitor things in the background. And people were saying, like, are parents going to be responsible for their kids having the car keys, or are they going to be responsible for like, if it wasn't something else? And I just, it was really, really interesting to see all this happen. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't done the YouTubey things, there are 300 of us here. So make sure to like, subscribe, do all the YouTubey things as we watch this, if you like more content like this.
aside from this case, is that true in other situations of your life?
Yeah.
Can you give the jury like an example?
Yeah, my husband had a hard time holding down a job after his mother passed away. So when he would lose a job, I would actually be the one finding the ones for him and sending them from Indeed or Monster and taking plans of how we're going to put certain things on payments. It's just, I take control of things. That's just what I do.
Okay.
I take control of things. That is just what I do. I wonder if anybody on the jury wrote that statement down. I take control of things. That is just what I do, because I don't think she thought any of the stuff the school was bringing to her. In my opinion, it seemed like they were minimizing it and they didn't think it was that big of a deal. I also think the school wasn't completely like, I don't know that they had a full idea of what could potentially be going on, but she seemed to make light of things. She's posting pictures of him, and so I really wonder if the jury, because of her talk of being a helicopter parent and being all of this, I wonder if some of that backfired. I had a few other things tagged. Okay, so we're gonna go to an hour and 22 minutes because to me, she kind of minimizes some of his behavior. So let me find that mark, an hour and 22. All right, so we're gonna fast forward a lot and because she's going through some of the different text messages and some of the different instances. All right, so let's start about here.
Did you ever see these texts?
I probably didn't. Not that time.
Do you recall seeing these texts at any point prior to this case?
I'm sure I did, but they weren't. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I saw them, but they just didn't stick out to me until this case
Why didn't they stick out to you?
because it wasn't anything that was.
These specific text messages are like, "Where is dad? Where are you all?" It's Ethan messaging his parents about where they are.
Anything serious. It was Ethan just messing around.
You got to explain to the jury, how did Ethan mess around?
So he's been convinced our house has been haunted since 2015. It was built in 1920. Around that time frame, him and his friend would go down to the basement and play a Ouija board. So they thought we had a house ghost. So it was around that time when he would mess with us that things were going on in the house. Silverware was flying across the room. Doors were slamming. He actually took a video of the door and showed me when I got home. And you can clearly see where he's standing back with his phone, looking at the door that's open. You can see him walk up the door and you can kind of see him slam it and him trying to say, "See, our house is haunted." So it was that kind of stuff that he did.
Okay, and did that continue on into 2021 when you'd get messages like this?
Only a couple of times, but I think he just got over it. Like it wasn't. He got bored with messing around with the ghost.
Did you mess around with him?
Yes.
Okay, what did you do to him?
When they were downstairs in the basement playing Ouija board one night, I went and flipped the circuit breaker off in the house, and he thought it was the ghost they conjured up on the Ouija board.
Did James ever mess around with you or with Ethan?
Yeah, a little bit.
Give us an example of what he did.
He said a lamp fell off a ledge in the basement, and so he named the ghost Victoria. So he was convinced there was another house ghost. So just kind of like an ongoing, like our house ghost, we called it. My son named it Boris Johnson. My husband named it Victoria. It was just a little phase.
Was there ever a time where James pretended he got electrocuted?
Yes.
What did he do?
We were remodeling our living room, and he was taking the old ceiling fan down and having to figure out what wires go where to the new ceiling fan. And as he was reaching up, he pretended to get electrocuted, and he fell on the ground and was shaking. And I ran up and I kicked him. I don't know why I kicked him, but I did. And then he stopped, and I realized he was joking. And my son had the phone recording.
Like, okay, so we thought somebody was being electrocuted and we kick them. Like, I don't think that part was helpful to me. in my opinion, I don't think that part was particularly helpful. And so clean room, so SL, so I am an adult that sometimes, so like my closet is a mess. The room I'm sitting in, so like my lunch bowl is here. I have so like I'm a bit of a messy person. uh but I don't think this went over well. I don't think this was particularly helpful to me. I don't think it was helpful. To me, I think some of these things were minimized. At least it's showing that he's not very responsible, that he's not very mature. um when we talk, because sometimes talks like this, people start talking about politics with particular weapons. And I have family members that are very responsible owners, and what they do is they have these safety procedures to make sure that they can protect their house, but that they're not, but that nobody in their house is harmed, that things are secure. And because it did come up that the code on the safe might have been 0000, and like even if it was locked, that there was a very, very easy code. And wow. um this just got, so I'm gonna play a little bit more of this and then switch to her cross examination.
Recording the whole time.
So this kind of stuff between you, your son, and your husband was like typical joking around kind of stuff.
It was.
Okay, so did you, when you look back at these texts now and you see that there's a demon throwing bowls and things like that, now looking back, do you think, oh my gosh, he had mental issues?
No,
What do you think was going on?
just what I said, that it was just him messing around. He only did it when we weren't at home, and it was for a short period of time, and then he got bored.
Okay.
So even she did not think that he had mental health issues. So I had to go back to the Miller testimony, to see what the prosecution expert, to see if they gave a diagnosis. Um, they did talk about that his brain is still maturing, but the family still continues to believe that he did not have any mental health concerns. And wow. Um, wow. All right. So that's that part. Let's switch. Let me know questions, but make sure to put your questions in the chat. We are gonna take a look at the her cross examination. So this is um the prosecution getting to ask her some more questions.
Crumbley, I'd like to talk to you about your vigilance as a parent. But before I do, I want to make sure that you understood the oath that you just took.
I do.
Okay, you understand that you took the stand under oath and you have to tell the truth.
I do.
You understand that was the rules yesterday as well.
Correct.
All right, we're going to come back to that. Now, you have been described by your attorney as a hyper vigilant parent.
Correct.
Okay, do you agree with that?
I do.
In fact, you called yourself a helicopter parent before.
Yes, I was.
So you told us you spent a lot of family time together.
We did.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about what your digital footprint shows,
Okay.
what the evidence on your phone shows.
Okay, so he's gonna go into the fact that she didn't really spend all that much, that she didn't spend a ton of time with him, and that she was having the affair. Like they're gonna go into all of that. I'm gonna skip ahead to 15 minutes and 50 seconds. All right, let's skip ahead to right about here. All right.
How it's identical. And you told us yesterday how your son was a good drawer.
He's a very good drawer.
Okay. What about the thoughts won't stop, help me? Does that ring out to you?
Yes, that was what was concerning to me.
Blood everywhere, and there's a bullet. And actually, you were the one who bought the bullets on November the 27th.
Correct.
You later came to learn that those bullets were used in the shooting.
I did.
Okay. So you said yesterday it was a little concerning, yet you told your husband emergency in all caps.
Correct. That's why I left to go to the school, and I
you said,
texted him.
and he wrote back, my God, WTF.
Correct.
And then you told him he was distraught about last night.
Correct.
Distraught's an intentional word you chose.
Correct.
Not sad. It's not a little anxious about school or his future. It's not talking about a video game. Distraught has a meaning.
Correct.
And you chose that word to send to him.
Correct.
So you went to that meeting. And this was November the 30th of 2021. And at that point, you'll agree with me that you knew prior to that day, the November 26th purchase day, that your son was wanting to get a 9mm. That's what you said yesterday.
Yes, I knew that they were talking about getting one because they had
Okay.
rented it in the past.
And you knew that he had shot one in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. And you knew that a 9mm is significantly more powerful than a 22.
I did not know that until I actually shot it.
Okay. Well, your dad took your son with James to the shooting range when they visited in July of 2021.
Correct.
And they talked about how powerful the 9mm was because they rented one.
Okay. I don't know.
Yes
if I
or no?
I don't know if I was part of that conversation, but if it was, it didn't register to me.
To register. Okay. You knew at the November 30, 2021 date that your son's friend had been taken without notice to your son.
Correct.
You said, I'm sorry, incorrect or
I said correct.
Correct. And you knew that when your son's friend was taken, your son was extremely upset.
He was upset. Yes.
He didn't go to school for a few days.
I don't remember that.
Okay. Well, if the school records show that he was absent for a few days after that, would you deny that?
I wouldn't.
And would you deny that he missed school because he was so upset?
I don't know if he missed school because he was so upset or maybe he was sick. I don't know.
Now, you told us yesterday and you acknowledged that that individual, that child, was like a second son to you.
Correct.
So he was the only one that your son hung out with.
Outside of school. Correct.
Okay. Well, who did he hang out with inside of school?
He named some names to me. I've never met them before, but he told me some group of kids that he sits and eats lunch with and he talks to in class.
Did he ever visit their houses?
No.
Did they ever visit your house?
No.
The only other peer to visit your house was this student who left the state around Halloween 2021.
At that time. Correct.
We're talking about that time in October, in September, in at least August, July, June, May, all of
2021. Correct.
2021. Thank you. Now, he left on Halloween, and you knew that your son was planning to hang out with him on Halloween.
Yes.
Okay. But his friend didn't show.
I had texted his friend's mom the day before trying to confirm if he was still coming over. And that's when we found out that he was driven to Wisconsin and taken to that school.
Okay, so you're telling us you found out the day before Halloween.
Yeah.
Okay. So that didn't stop you and James from going to a Halloween party at the barn.
I don't believe it was on Halloween.
Oh, that's what Kira testified
It
to.
was the Friday before Halloween.
If there was a picture with a date stamp on it, would you deny it?
No.
Okay. And it didn't stop you from after you left that party without your son. You went to another Halloween party.
We did.
And your son was home alone at that point.
Yes.
So you talked to us a little bit about your son's hobbies in 2021. But in November of 2021, so we'll start with November the 1st, 2021. You know that those hobbies were non-existent. And I'll go one by one.
Okay.
So you told us about bowling.
Correct.
Bowling the team wasn't in session at that point in time, was it?
No, I think actually at that time he decided he didn't want to do bowling that year.
Okay, so he stopped bowling the
He did.
sophomore year.
He did.
And it wouldn't have been,
And so just so we all know, because we try to add a little education here, that with depression, that sometimes withdrawal from previously enjoyed activities. That's called anhedonia. So a person that used to be really active all of a sudden isn't as active. And thank you, because somebody let me know that the prison doctor diagnosed him with depression and anxiety. It did not seem like a psychotic break. Like, it seemed like there were some sadistic, seemed like there was some underlying things. Even the judge in the Miller hearing talked about how because I think he had a student beg for her life or something. Like, there was a really odd, like there was a really sadistic, like an interaction that the judge was just like, no. Like anyone should know that this is wrong. Welcome, welcome. So we love all the Grizzlies, the lawyer chicklets, the everybody from Law and Lumber. I talk about the psychological aspect, and I do listen to the lawyers to get an idea just as I'm talking about these things. I cannot answer your legal questions, but I can talk about this as a psychologist. And so, welcome to everybody that's in the chat. And then he had also harmed animals as well. That's a red flag. If you look at the diagnosis conduct disorder, and if you look at a person that becomes like, so when a person is harming animals, sometimes they are working up to doing something more. And that's a red flag. And I do think he really needed some serious help and support. Uh, and that is just horrific. And he did those things, and he did seem to enjoy it. And I like a dark sense of humor. I like sarcasm, but we don't use it when there is we don't use it when something isn't safe, or when in a crisis, or if I'm trying to correct my child. I don't use sarcasm personally, because sarcasm can come off as passive aggressive, and mom seems to be sarcastic to me. Like that's just, and I, like I said, I'm a sarcastic person, and I am very careful. I've known other people that were raised with sarcasm and discipline, and it can make the person feel like they're not smart, or it can come across a little almost emotionally, like when you're using it against the person, like it can come off a little difficult, and it can cause issues down the road. Um, I think he knew he was gonna be arrested. I think he knew he was gonna get caught. Like, I don't think not getting caught was ever like, I think he wanted it's a real sick thing. And I've already told y'all it can be hard to cover the shooter things. I really did. The Miller hearing, and I do have a video covering Ethan Crumbley's Miller hearing. If you go back to my court playlist, you might have to scroll down a little bit. But that one is definitely there. Yes. Yes. Ray uh, said he wanted to be arrested. That would not surprise me at all, because mom texted him, "Don't do it." When they heard something was happening at the school, they immediately knew, I think he's doing something. And so if something's happening at my kid's school, my first thought wouldn't be my child like that wouldn't be my first thought. My first thought would be, I hope my kid's safe. I need to go make sure that my kid is safe. Their first thought was, oh, like OMG, what did he do? That was their first thought. Ooh. Um wow, wow, wow. And like, yeah, to me, she did not come across well on the stand. I am not a lawyer, but if she was my client, because to me the state's case seemed to have some holes in it, and her getting on the stand let the state ask her those questions that everybody had of like, why didn't you see this? Like what happened? How did you ignore this? And and she's still minimizing, saying it wasn't there. And so that's where the verdict did not surprise me at all. Let me go on ahead and find the link with the verdict. Um, and we all already know, but like we can go on ahead and watch it anyway. Uh, And y'all, I don't know if y'all noticed, so I did upgrade to premium. People were so mad about the commercials on the last one. They were like, "You need how do you have, uh, this many subs and you don't have, YouTube Premium?" So I feel fancy. I updated to YouTube Premium, and, I I don't think she came across well. And I think without her testifying to me, she might have, because the state's case to me focused too much on the affair, and the school counselor, in my opinion, if I was on the jury, the school counselor didn't say, "This was so bad, he needed to get assessed this day. He needed to get assessed today." So, commercials are how I make a little bit of money, and so, like here on the tube, so they are but they are evil when they are on my stream, I agree. And I now pay to not see them. Like, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. So now before I got fancy, I just watched all those commercials, okay? I have student loans to pay off, so anybody that has to watch commercials, like we take care of our business first, okay? We take care of our business. And I know T has had YouTube Premium for a while and raves about it. And so Amber, what am I missing out on with premium? What features? I know I can download and stuff. I think we went on a trip and I got premium so that I could download a video. But yes. Not so, like, please, like, do whatever is within your budget. I didn't do the family plan. I only did it for me. So the rest of my family, they all have commercials. Dr. Barry doesn't have commercials. They all get commercials. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I need to pull up the closing. So, Dr. Tracy, ask me if you want me to cover the prosecution side or the defense side. I have not watched the full defense side. I have heard things about the defense side. So, Tracy or chat, let me know if we need to watch the defense side or um the prosecution. I've heard some things about the defense. I've heard that the defense went really hard on, like, this could happen to any parent, um, and that she gave specific examples about her own parenting that might have not been so great. Um, that's what I've heard. Defense. Okay, yes. So I am pulling that up now. We will take a look at it. Her style is kind of odd anyway to me, but there's a little. Let me share this tab. Close captions. All right, let's go.
As the prosecutor finished, she said, "This is shocking, unthinkable." I believe there were other words used throughout trial. Unbelievable. Obviously, unbelievable, unthinkable, unfathomable. And the reason that's the case is because it was unforeseeable. No one expected this. No one could have expected this, including Mrs. Crumbley. Now, the first thing I want to do very quickly is talk to you about the burden of proof. In the state of Michigan, there are different burden of proofs depending on what kind of a case it is.
I'm going to fast forward through that part.
By proof, persons more evidence, and that specifically is clear
Keep going.
in this of, but there's many other through my closing. The other thing I have to ask you to keep in mind is that in the jury instructions, and I think you've been told this throughout trial, the defense does not have to prove or do anything. Like Judge Matthews said, we could sit at the table and play chess the whole time, call no witnesses, cross-examine no witnesses, provide no evidence, because we have no burden to prove a thing.
The prosecution does.
However, in this case, you obviously saw the defense present Mrs. Crumbley, who took the stand, so that she could give you some context beyond parts of the evidence that were confusing when the prosecutor was introducing in bits and pieces. And The problem in this case is that we can all agree everything can be seen different in two ways. First of all, when you look back in hindsight with 20/20 vision, when you look back in hindsight, it is easy to say, this could have been different, that could have been different, this would have changed. And the other circumstance, the second one that makes a huge difference, is when you get full context around the evidence that is being used. And in this case, the prosecutor has cherry-picked little bits of evidence out of mountains of evidence to put in front of you with no context to explain what they're doing. And when you get cherry-picked bits of evidence, it's easy to reach wrong conclusions. Now, during jury selection, it felt like the prosecutor was asking you questions and giving more of a campaign speech than a jury selection proceeding. And I would suggest to you that at the end of the day, the only judge, although Ms. McDonald mentioned she's been a judge and was a judge several times during her jury selection, the only judge in this courtroom that matters is Judge Matthews. And the only other people whose judgment matters are the 12 of you who will collectively decide this case. The rest of us don't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. Ms. McDonald's doesn't matter. The opinions of everyone in this audience doesn't matter. The media and all of the people who think they know everything behind keyboards at home commenting about what they think the evidence in this case has shown.
Is she talking to us? Is she talking about us? But she's right. What I think does not matter. The most important thing is what that jury came to.
So during this case, it's obvious real life is messy and complicated. And during this trial, I will openly admit that I'm a lawyer who messes up. I get thrown off when I'm surprised by something. I feel like I get overwhelmed when information is coming at me quickly. I say I'm sorry a lot. Evidently, there's a TikTok channel of me saying I'm sorry through this whole trial. And all I'm saying is that I'm human. I am a human being, and so is Mrs. Crumbley. And that's what this case is about. She's not a perfect person or a perfect parent. I'm certainly not a perfect person or a perfect parent. And I'm certainly, beyond a reasonable doubt, bad with technology, which is why you're not going to see me touch that laptop.
Y'all, I tried to find the TikTok. I was like, what? She's over on TikTok. I tried to go and find it. I wasn't able to easily find it, so we're not going to take a look at that today. To me, her style this entire trial was a little combative, in my opinion, but I think that's her style. Somebody mentioned, I wonder if this was her first case. I don't think it was. Like, I think this is just her style. The judge seems incredibly laid back. The judge seemed to let things go that, like, some of my favorite judges, like Judge Newman or like Judge Carroll, or that other judges would not have allowed. But like, wow. Okay, we're gonna keep going.
Laptop. So during this trial, I have stood before you and shown you all my flaws, and I embrace them, and they are a part of what makes me human. And so has Jennifer Crumbley. She got on the stand and talked about every nook and cranny of her life, things no one else in the world knew, in her family, among her friends. And she wanted you to see the whole truth, the entire truth, and nothing but the truth on everything, where she had to show you that she has made immoral decisions to have an affair, that she has made decisions you might not make to have another person involved in the affair. Now, we didn't get too far into the details, but it was enough for you to know that Mrs. Crumbley got up there and literally stripped off her armor, let the prosecution cross-examine her, and show you what happened in her messy life. And I say that with all kindness because I'm a mess too. I saw a meme about a week ago that said, I'm trying to be a mom, trying to get exercised, stay hydrated, get enough sleep, text everyone back, and not lose my shit. And I've got to be honest, as a mom, a working mom, on most days, I'm lucky if I'm fit for human contact. I'm lucky if I've taken a true shower and didn't just grab a handful of wipes and scrub off the best I can on my way running out the door, putting on my makeup as I drive to court in my car. Because my life is not perfect and no one's is. And during this trial, you may have concluded that you don't like me, that you hate me. That's fine. I am just asking that your opinions about me as a person, and if you're one of the people who plans to make a TikTok about me, that you won't hold those opinions against Jennifer Crumbley and will judge Jennifer Crumbley's case based on the evidence about her and her family. And if you hate her or don't like her or agree with things she's done, that's okay too. You don't have to like her. You are not expected to go hang out with her when
I think she knows her client is not very likable. I think she knows it. And she might be used to defending people because if she defended Dr. I think it's Nassar. I'm bad. Y'all know I say names bad, but that gymnastics doctor, like if she defended him, ugh, and everybody deserves a defense. Everybody deserves a defense. But no, no. And y'all know I love Dr. G explains. I'll have to go check out his video after. Like, I just this is hard. I think this was all that she had because there is some things that's not great for her client, and I think she needs people to think that her client is the norm because if my child was talking about seeing things and I think there's a ghost and all the if my child engaged in some of these things, I would get them into therapy. Now I'm a psychologist. I'm unique. But then if I find out that they're even if I wasn't a psychologist and he's searching things at school and there are all of these things that are happening, ugh, I would do that. Um this is hard. I'm gonna keep going.
this is all over. After trial, you don't have to decide if you want to go to her house. You don't have to have Thanksgiving with her. But when you're looking at the evidence in this case, it's important to set aside your opinions of her or take your opinions of me and supplant them on Mrs. Crumbley. Now, when I took on this case pretty early on, I realized I am Jennifer Crumbley and I could be here accused and sitting in her spot very easily. Now, in my house, we don't have guns. I don't have guns, but I do have children. And actually, I have an oopsie baby, my fourth one. I did not want 4 in 4 years, but that's what I was blessed with. I say I'm abundantly blessed. And
Does she sound abundantly blessed? I don't her oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. So there is not so under the age of 18, there is normally conduct disorder. So the diagnosis might be conduct disorder. You typically do not diagnose personality disorders because there is no like, so psychopathy, the diagnosis would be antisocial personality disorder. That would be the actual diagnosis. But with conduct disorder, what we found is sometimes there are environmental factors, there are life factors, there are different things, and that some people that have conduct disorder, they don't go on to have antisocial personality disorder. So there are people that had, maybe they got in with a bad crowd and they made some really poor decisions when they were 16, and then they ended up going to the military, and they changed, like they're successful, they don't have any problems, they don't break laws. So that's one situation. So that's why we are very careful about diagnosing personality disorders under the age of 18. There are a lot of factors that go into it that can definitely impact things. I'm going to try to keep going. I think I only have like 10 more minutes. So please, if y'all have questions, please put questions down below.
I have kids that seem to have no issues. And at the end of the day, they're good kids. They go to school. We have no discipline problems. We have arguments here and there, just like every family does. I have a son that wants to hang out with me very rarely, but I have no belief that any of my 4 children would ever harm anyone else. And while I don't have a gun, I have a large butcher block on my counter with big knives that I use when I cook, and I enjoy cooking. And at the end of the day, my kids could just as easily grab a knife without me knowing it and without me having it on my radar and walk out the door of my house and go play with their kids, the other kids on my block.
Why did this have to get so specific? Did it really have to get this specific? I guess I guess in her mind, because the jury is dealing with a very real scenario, she is giving a very specific scenario. I don't think it had to get this specific. I think she could have got her point across different ways, but those are just my thoughts.
Granted, they live farther down my block because I'm in the middle of nowhere. And my son could kill somebody with my butcher block knife that I would have never expected to happen. And if you saw the text messages that my husband and I exchanged on a daily basis throughout this past year and even years before, it would be so easy for me to be in her seat. With my kids, I don't monitor assignments. I don't look at their phones. I have no reason to. My son plays a lot of video games. My son's online talking to a bunch of people as he's playing a lot of video games. Even though he has a cell phone, I don't go through it and look at his messages every day. And as he gets older, I do know he's interested in girls. If he starts receiving nude pictures of a girl on the cell phone I own but let him use and gave him for his birthday when he turned 11, should I be held accountable for receiving child pornography?
You
If my
can be.
picture of
You can be.
his bits and pieces, that's a 20
What in the world?
This clearly was not foreseeable to Mrs. Crumbley.
I'm sorry. That took a turn. That took a turn, and somebody had already said I wasn't expecting her to say it the way that she said it. I wasn't expecting. I had already been warned that she was going to go down this way. I have worked with people because it is illegal for pictures, for those what she said, that is illegal. And if it's on like a parent's device, like that, I've had clients where we have had to bring in the police, where FBI Special Victims Unit has had to get involved for certain situations. And like, I, I Buttercup, ask your question. Um, uh, like, do we have to say this? Like, is this a boundary I have to set? I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it. I think this went a little too far for me personally, for what I'm okay with and for what I'm comfortable with, but I could never be a defense lawyer. If I was ever a lawyer, I could probably be a prosecutor. I don't think I could be a defense lawyer. I don't know that I could. Um, uh, and that's why I didn't become a lawyer. That's why I'm a psychologist. I enjoy helping people once the system has decided where things fall. I I don't I don't think I don't think I wasn't I really do. I hope the kids are not on the interwebs and that they don't see any of that. I wouldn't have said it that way. I wouldn't have done it that way, and all of this, it did not work for for her client. Let's go on ahead and just play the verdict. I think we all know what it was, but let's hear it anyway. Here is the verdict.
We are continuing to follow breaking news.
Fast
Our
forward.
we find 3 as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana. We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Thank you for allowing me to be seated, and I'm going to close the hearing.
Jury seat.
And it was read really fast. So she was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter on all 4 counts. And I don't know what type of sentence. Y'all can let me know in the chat if y'all have an idea of what type of if y'all have an idea of what could have happened. I don't know if Jennifer Crumbley, I don't know if she was happy with the defense that she received because her lawyer was the one that brought the affair in. And I hope that Jennifer knew that her lawyer was going to do that and that that was a strategy that they agreed to. I Was this a public defender or no? I heard that she spent $20,000 a year on horses. Do y'all remember hearing that? Her hobby with the horses, she spent $20,000 and that was just that's just what they could find. But there was more money spent on the horses besides that. And so, I okay. Okay. So 4 counts, potentially up to 15 years. Okay. This was such a sad case, and that's why I like saying, if you do have a concern about your child, if you do, I would have them meet with a licensed counselor, and I would have a risk assessment done. A risk assessment takes a look at not only harm towards self, but also harm towards others. If there are these breaks with reality. Now, kids have a good imagination. Like, it's normal for kids to kind of play and dream but I would, if it's feeling a little off, if it's feeling a little different, then I think making sure to check in to make sure that everything's okay. He lost his grandmother. He had a lot of stuff happen. None of that excuses what he did. There is no excuse for what happened. As a psychologist, I just try to understand. And there are allegations that his parents made him sleep outside the night before the incident because he got in trouble about his grades and that there had been this big argument about his grades. And the mom, to me, on the stand, she kind of minimized um, the drawing that he did. She thought he was still upset about their argument about his grades. some of the things she described sounded like attention seeking, and attention seeking is normal. It is normal for my child to want my attention. Some people try to get that attention in unhealthy ways. And so if my child is going about getting my attention in unhealthy ways, that's where I want to get some help and support for them so we can learn some ways to get it in more appropriate ways, that we don't have to um make things big, that we don't have to do all of that. Horses are very, very expensive. Horses are very, very expensive. Um, the the yeah, the defense attorney, because I'm catching up on the comments. Oh, so they paid for their own defense. Okay. Wow. Wow. And she said on the record that she trusted her attorney's strategy. Yes, because I think the judge asked, because I think the judge asked her if this is what she wanted. And, the judge was smart to get that on the record, because, it also came up that they couldn't call Ethan as a witness, and I think it was the lawyer that said if he was the defense attorney, that he would probably play that video of Ethan saying that there wasn't anyone that I'm paraphrasing, that wasn't exactly what he said, but basically saying that he didn't reach out for help, that he did what he did, and he alone is responsible. He's spending the rest of his life in jail. And so if there is any rehab, it'll be rehab that can happen within jail. I do believe he got life without the possibility of parole. I could be wrong, but he definitely had life in prison. I don't know if he has the possibility for parole. I forget. I did cover his Miller hearing. Um, there would have to be some significant changes, I think. And yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that the husband is, and so I don't, this is just a comment. Um, wow. I had not heard that. Wow. Oh, she sold her house to pay for the lawyer. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Um, so if they are having difficulty finding services that are within their means, because if I have a $5,000 deductible, therapy services could cost, you know, $100 a week or $200. Therapy can get expensive, and so that is where Open Path Collective. I believe I have it listed in the description, but openpathcollective.com. They offer reduced services. Psychologytoday.com. You can search for licensed therapists that offer a sliding scale or reduced services. In my state, we have what's called community services boards, where they provide free or reduced services based on a person's income. And so there are services that are available. I will admit it can be difficult to find. It can be very, very difficult to find. That's why I do a ton of content on like how to find a therapist. When you find a therapist, make sure it's the right therapist. And if something's not right with your therapist, like that, you can set boundaries, and like I try to speak out about these things. So this was what I heard. So I believe this is what the prosecution, that I think when she found out about his grades, I think the my understanding was that he got kicked out, and he recorded that video on his phone saying what he was going to do the next day, and nobody saw it. Um if my child had a phone, I would not search his phone regularly, but if my child was showing signs of a problem, best believe I'm gonna take a look at that phone. Imma take a look at the emails. I'm gonna take a look at some things. Even the lawyer talked about her child chatting with people online. Like, I hope that's being done safely. If any parents need questions about how to protect their children online, Cyber Farida. Cyber Farida, her and I, we did a video together. If you type, protecting kids online, Cyber Farida, her information should come right up. She's a cybersecurity expert, and she talks about protecting kids on like Roblox and on Snapchat, and like how do you protect kids online. Oh, so much, so much, so much. And Jennifer Crumbley denied the sleeping outside thing, like that she denied it, but ugh. She seemed to remember things that in a way that made her look just a little bit better, but not great. Still not great. Um, and that's always my hope. So my hope is to always get to people before they get to the point of of no return. I think he lost hope, and I don't know. I don't know. Like that's just it's a lot. Um, yeah. Uh, And there are institutions, I'm just being honest, there are treatment facilities for people that do have those types of severe thoughts. Because let's say he did a short-term hospitalization and was still having these kinds of thoughts, still not quite safe enough to be in the community. There are, residential placements. Sometimes residential placements, sometimes, like, people get worse and not better. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest about our mental health field. That's why I try to stabilize people within their home if we can, because an institution is not a home. An institution, sometimes people can learn to kind of work the system in there, and sometimes there can be like additional issues that happen. Often in institutions, they use physical restraint. They use like medical, like they often use a lot of things that can cause issues for when people are transitioning back into the community. That's why in my state, Virginia, we have community-based services to try to help stabilize people within the home. There are partial hospitalization. So that's where the person goes for maybe from 9 a.m. to 3 or 5 p.m. They're in a secure place during the day, and they go home at night. And there's also no, I said partial. And then there's intensive outpatient, where somebody goes to like 5 times a week. And once again, that's during the day. And so in my state, I don't know if this is happening anywhere else, but with going into the ER, what can sometimes happen is sometimes they cannot find a bed. So that is something that has happened in Virginia, many with a lot of different clients, where a client was not safe, needed hospitalization, and then they were unable to locate a pediatric bed in the entire state of Virginia. And so sometimes that child stayed in the ER for 2, 3 days, and then eventually the ER discharges them home, and we try to meet with them as soon as possible for therapy. Our mental health system is broken. I try to help advocate for change because it is important. All right, I need to go feed my kid. So tonight was live. Normally, I do not go live on Tuesday. Normally, I go live on Saturday. This was so important. I wanted to just record it live, no edits. Let's just talk about it. And then I am going to record a video that'll come out on Saturday talking about the Jodi Arias. What was his name? Oh my gosh. The psychologist that testified for Jodi Arias. Somebody mentioned that one to me, and I took a look at his testimony, and I have some thoughts. So I will be recording that video, and I'm going to take a look at that. So I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. Bye. Finding my end screen. There we go. Here we go. Bye.